Tonight, it's going to be the People's Champion, The Rock, against Stone Cold Steve Austin versus the Game Triple H in a triple threat match for the WWF Championship. And wait, what's that? My God, my God, by God, by God, somebody just hit Stone Cold Steve Austin in the parking lot. What the hell is going on? That's right, you thought you were going to get Austin on the pay-per-view. We knew he was injured, and we're just going to go yoink. But I've got your pay-per-view money, so I win. Ha 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 ha. God, they really fucking duped a whole lot of fans of this show, didn't they? No wonder WWF entered a bit of a lull period creatively. Even though they were smashing it in the ratings, even though their pay-per-views were still doing well, man, WCW should have had their druthers about them. Maybe they could have actually succeeded with Vince McMahon pulling the proverbial rug right out from under the fans on this night. I'm John Renton with the retro review of WWE Survivor Series 1999. November 14th, 1999, a day that will live in infantry. I think that's how that saying goes. Yeah, if you're expecting a massively detailed retro review, what the fuck are you doing here, and how often have you been on this channel? Because I just tend to have fun with these retro reviews. I am going to talk about the fact, however, that this was in the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan, the site of Halloween Havoc 94 and 95. That still had more embarrassing moments than this, despite the fact that really, top to bottom, when you rewatch this was a slog of a pay-per-view. This was difficult to get through. It was not great. Now, 21,000 seating capacity. They had just about 19,000 fans, and they had 406,000 pay-per-view buys, and all these figures I'm going to talk about are according to WrestleNomics. Let's talk about the 1997 edition of Survivor Series, where nothing eventful happened at all. I haven't retro-reviewed that, and I don't know if I ever will, because I've always talked about the Montreal Screwjob, but yes, it was in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And they had about 20,000 or 20,500 fans and 284,000 pay-per-view buys. And then we look at the previous year to this one, 1998. For those of you who don't understand how a calendar works, in the Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis, Missouri, they had 21,179 fans and 506,000 pay-per-view buys for the Deadly Game tournament. Yeah, that was a terrible rendition of that song I did for that review last year. Then the following year, 2000, Tampa Bay, Florida, 18,602 fans and 400,000 pay-per-view buys. So they were down a little bit, and I'm struggling to remember much of that goddamn card. I do remember Austin and Triple H, I believe, had a goddamn match, and I believe Taker just completely destroyed, well, no, he beat up Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle still retained the championship, but yeah, that's when Taker was in his weird, phase of being the American Badass, but dressed really strangely. And in 2001, the Survivor Series, the winner-take-all match, where, they ran through the entire Alliance storyline within a few months. I gotta be perfectly honest, I would hope that after reliving the war, maybe Wrestling Bios covers reliving the invasion, and then maybe just cover that. That would actually be kind of cool. But yeah, the Greensboro Memorial Coliseum that holds significantly more than what they had. That's Greensboro, North Carolina. It holds around 23,000 or so. And they had 10,142 fans, and they had 450,000 pay-per-view buys, so they got a lot of people to watch it. They just didn't get a lot of people to watch it in the building. Let's take a look at the 1999 pay-per-views, though, because that's kind of telling as to where their business was at this point. Now, obviously, Nitro was fucking floundering. Nitro was, if they were lucky, approaching a 4.0 rating, and they wouldn't even actually get close to that in the year 2000, because they would just end up cascading downwards due to a variety of things. And WWF was at least doing 5.5 to 6.0, or, sometimes 6.5s. You're not going to hear about that stuff because, yes, television viewing has changed, but the 1999 Royal Rumble that was in Anaheim, California at the Arrowhead, I believe. I don't know if it's still called the Arrowhead or not, but 14,816 fans, and they had 650,000 pay-per-view buys, at least domestically. Now, for that shitty pay-per-view, that was a really shit Rumble. It was memorable, yes, for Austin and Vince, and the fact that Vince won the Rumble, but in hindsight, what they did for St. Valentine's Day Massacre, they really should have just had Austin win the goddamn thing, because Vince winning the Rumble just wasn't good. Creatively, they were just all over the goddamn place. It was car crash television. We go to St. Valentine's Day Massacre, I believe was the second to last in-your-house pay-per-view. I believe Backlash was the last official in-your-house pay-per-view. That was in Memphis, Tennessee, 19,000 fans, and they had 455,000 pay-per-view buys, which pretty good considering outside of, let's see, there was Rock and Mankind in the ladder match. There was Austin and Vince in the steel cage match where Vince broke his ass, literally. I believe he, busted his tailbone. And Hardcore Holly and Al Snow had a pretty fun hardcore match, despite the fact Al Snow was involved. So that's a pretty good, 1, 2, and Hardcore Holly punch right there. And, yeah, outside of that, I don't remember the pay-per-view meaning much. But then we go to Mania 15, arguably one of the most underwhelming WrestleManias of all time. They were in Philly, and they had about 20,276 fans, and they had 865,000 pay-per-view buys, which is a pretty sizable goddamn deal. And in Backlash, they were in Providence. They had almost 11,000 fans, and they had 390,000 pay-per-view buys, arguably for a much, 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 much better match between Austin and Rock than we got at Mania 15, even though that was the best of that particular thing. We had a big old deal. It was really, really impressive how, alive the crowd was. And then we go No Mercy UK, because we would have a No Mercy US show later on. This was the week before, Over the Edge 99. They were in Manchester, 18,000 fans, and I don't know what the pay-per-view buy rates were because those weren't available. Then we go to the Over the Edge pay-per-view, Kemper Arena in Kansas City. The ill-fated night where they should have stopped the pay-per-view. Or just not had Owen do that stunt. 16,472 fans, 400,000 pay-per-view buys. It's not like they couldn't have afforded to just say, we're going to come back later. Come back in a week or something. Anyway, King of the Ring, 1999. I've talked about the Owen Hart debacle, that stuff, how he should still be alive and with his family today. So I'm not going to go over that detail by detail. King of the Ring 99 was in Greensboro. They had 20,108 fans. Yeah, they had basically twice the goddamn crowd for that pay-per-view, where Billy Gunn won the King of the Ring tournament. And they did not have much of anything. I mean, they had Austin against the McMahons in a ladder match. Who raised the briefcase? We don't know. They did have 406,000 pay-per-view buys, so yeah, they actually matched what they had here, roughly. Foley Lowe's in Buffalo, they had 16,605 fans, and they had 334,000 pay-per-view buys, so they were starting to sink a little bit. I mean, not everything can stay hot, and that was still a sizable amount of money given the revenue split that WWF had. So then SummerSlam was in Minneapolis, where Jesse Ventura made his return after nearly a decade away. I mean, close to it. Minneapolis, so they had 17,370 fans, and they had 600,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, pretty big deal for when Shane and Test have the best match on your goddamn show. Unforgiven, Charlottesville. Yeah, the six-pack challenge and the Kennel from Hell match. So they had, Charlotte, they had 15,779 fans, and they had 300,000 pay-per-view buys. Ouch. Ouch. Yeah. Not great. Not great, Bob. Yeah, you're going to have a drop from SummerSlam to a B pay-per-view, but still. And then Rebellion was another UK pay-per-view. They were in Birmingham, 13,500 fans. No Mercy US, that was where Austin and Triple H had a match, and, they had their stuff. And it did have the Hardys and Edge and Christian having a show-stealing ladder match. And the Terry Invitational Tournament, yes, because everybody's mature. They were in Cleveland, Ohio. They had 18,700 and so fans. 298,000 pay-per-view buys. So, yikes. I mean, granted, AEW, that normally does pay-per-view, traditional pay-per-view, would kill for that kind of stuff. But good grief, 298,000 considering where they were earlier in the year. Armageddon, right after this, was in Sunrise, Florida. 17,000 fans, 337,000 pay-per-view buys. So, yeah, a drop of almost 70 compared to what they had here. So, the video package was talking about, Austin, Rock, and Triple H, and still promoting that Austin was going to make his, make another main event here. He had severe neck problems and needed neck surgery. This is after Owen Hart dropped him on his head accidentally, and that really wasn't going to fly. So, I miss different looking pay-per-view sets, like unique looking pay-per-view sets. even if sometimes, like, you know, it is cool that they get more people in the building, I just miss this kind of stuff because now everything just looks the same more often than not. So JR and Lawler on commentary, all those signs in the goddamn crowd. There's not going to be a lot of match analysis here because most of the matches were fucking dog shit. A while ago, years ago, it was like 2016, I think. I was at, a good friend's house and apartment, and I did a Why 1999 Sucked in Wrestling series. And to be perfectly honest, like, while I enjoyed doing it and I did get some views at the time, I was not nearly as snarky as I could be. And 1999 did not suck for wrestling. It just isn't the golden era when you break down into the minutia. There's good... ECW probably, as far as match quality, had the best stuff. Because, yes, WCW had some good stuff, don't get me wrong. WWF had some good stuff, don't get me wrong. But you look at their weekly television, look at WCW's weekly television, for every good bit there was, and I'm not saying ECW weekly programming was any saint either, but there were at least parts to it where it seemed like they were growing by at least leaps and bounds. WWF is as high as it was going to get, pretty much, for the time being, and then WCW is fucking floundering to the point after Mayhem 1999, they would never hit 200,000 pay-per-views buy rates again. And this actually was a week before Mayhem. So, Lawler being a creep towards the hose, Godfather's hose, not the, gardening equipment. So the Godfather, D'Lo, and the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, dressed up as pimps for whatever reason, took on the Dudleys and the Acolytes before Farouk and Bradshaw became the APA. The Acolyte Protection Agency, where they had a shirt that said, always pounding ass. They really had that shirt. I'm not kidding. You probably can find shirts like that. Maybe designs on Redbubble or on, the black market. The BBC market. The BBCs are always pounding ass. Let's move on. So, yeah, Thrasher and Mosh were gone within, the first 5 minutes. Outside of the last elimination match, every single elimination match was under 10 minutes. Some of the entrances, actually were, half the goddamn time. Like the match time. So Bradshaw ended up blasting D'Lo with a chair and blasted Bubba with a chair because the Acolytes did not want to deal with the Dudleys. And then Farouk and Devon got double counted out. And Bubba got pinned by D'Lo after a hoe train and then after a lowdown frog splash 1, 2, 3. I really felt bad for D'Lo because this was a month or so after the incident with Draws. And no one, I'm not saying the fans do, but no one should blame D'Lo for that. I know D'Lo blames himself based on the, I believe it's a Road Warriors dark side. Always felt bad for Draws, rest in peace Draws, and always felt bad for D'Lo having that guilt. He never meant to, it was an accident. But there was one really, really beautiful, woman that was one of the ladies of the evening. She was the tallest one. Some purple top and black skirt or, whatever. I was like, okay, cool. Anyway, so the hose danced with Tim White. That's not wise. That's the best thing that Josh Matthews did. If only Josh Matthews actually did what Tim White did. For real. So, Kurt Angle package. We were purely cheesy here at this point. And Shawn Stasiak makes his entrance. They reminded us that Stan Stasiak, Shawn Stasiak's dad, actually, won a championship. I have nothing against Shawn Stasiak, but it's just as meat as whatever he was in WCW. I mean, because he was in WCW soon after this. And then wasn't really used all that well. And he was playing Stasiak when he came back because he leaked the whole plans of this invasion taking place at WrestleMania 17. If true, good job there. Kurt Angle against Shawn Stasiak. Really, this is only memorable for some good wrestling from Kurt. Shawn wasn't bad in the ring. He just was who he was. And we're boring chants, let's go Red Wings, because Kurt is a Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania native. And you do not boo an Olympic gold medalist. And then Kurt, and he got on the mic. He thought he was going to get cheered. He got on the mic, and it's like, okay, he was getting it. It took a bit. It took probably, I'd say till probably about No Way Out 2000. when he really started to kick it in. But it was nice. He won with the Olympic Slam. And it was great because he was off to the races right here. To think, in less than a year, he would be the WWF champion. So, recaps of Austin, Triple H, and Rock on Heat. And then DX tried to attack. And, well, because Road Dogg was involved, they failed. Because Road Dogg is a failure at life. I mean, if I thought like him, I probably wouldn't have wanted to come back from the heart issue that I had. I have no problem saying that, too, because I'm going to throw snark at everybody that thinks like Road Dogg, and you know what the hell I mean. And if you think like Road Dogg, you're part of the problem. And whatever you voted for, I hope you get every bit of it. And you will. So, Val Venus, Mark Henry, Gangrel, and Steve Blackman in the most random goddamn team sent Bulldog and the Mean Street Posse. Well, Bulldog and the Mean Street Posse had been associated. In the sense that British Bulldog had to carry these three schlubs. I'm sure they're nice guys. I think Joey Abs was like the only one that was a trained wrestler. Rodney wasn't very good. Pete Gas like bled like crazy. I think it was it Mania 2000. Anyway, so commentary kept mentioning Survivor Series 97 because Bulldog associated with Brett and all that. Rodney, Pete Gas, and Joey were eliminated within the first few minutes. Bulldog took care of Gangrel and Steve Blackman, but eventually fell to Mark Henry hitting the splash and then Val Venus hitting a top rope splash and winning. And it's funny that Val Venus became such a crackpot and such a virtuous individual, despite the fact that had he not been a male porn star character, nobody would have fucking remembered Val Venus because Val Venus was a decent worker and bland as a fucking roll. Not even a roll with butter. Even a roll with butter actually would have been better. Even a little bit of a Kaiser roll. Because a Kaiser roll actually could mean a few things. A Kaiser roll also is something that I knew that a man named Kaiser used to do with his women, and that's all I can say until the cases are settled. Val Venus, piece of shit, transphobic, dumbass son of a bitch, and you know what? He deserves every bit of the melting that he has gone through. His brain melting, whatever melting. He'll be a puddle eventually, and we'll laugh. So, Cole tries to talk to the women. Ivory offers to have him rub something on her, and moving on. Deborah, Moolah, Mae Young, and Tori. Not Tori Wilson. She was in WCW. Tori, the one that they had associated with Kane, and then with X-Pac, and then they had her, I believe, as a ninja, helping out Raven. Wrestling is weird. I think it's the LPWA Super Showdown that Terry was actually on. Her name was Terry Power, now Tori. And it was weird seeing her there. They didn't seem to know what to do with her here at all. I mean, she seemingly lost something in the time, in the interim from there to any Japan trips and to here. I mean, I don't know what the fuck happened. Ivory, who was the current women's champion, they had lost to the fabulous Moolah at No Mercy and then won it back, I believe, if I remember right. Terry, bless her, not a wrestler, knew it and did her role well. Do not misunderstand me. I got nothing but love for Terry Reynolds. Went through a whole bunch of bullshit, never deserved to be targeted like she was. Absolute dog shit, and I wish nothing but the best for Terry. And if you're going to put women in the Hall of Fame, you know what? Terry meant quite a bit. Terry was memorable. And Jaqueline, thank you, Chris. Thank you. And Luna. I always forget that Luna was still in the company at this point. Because, you know, she apparently got in an argument with Sable and then an argument with Sunny, I believe. And quite frankly, could have ripped Sable limb from limb. And should have. Because Sable was a snot-nosed bitch that never deserved a dime that she got from wrestling. She drew ratings. Jim Jones drew people to drink his Kool-Aid. And I'd rather drink the Kool-Aid than look or listen to Sable. As Jim Cornette once said, I don't know what they got for putting a microphone in front of Sable, but it should have been 3 to 5 years. So, yeah, they had Moolah pinning Ivory. This was literally under 2 minutes, and it felt like an eternity. Thankfully, it wasn't an elimination match. We get a post-match brawl where poor Terry gets, I mean, she was wearing a top, but she got part of her top ripped at, ooh, puppies, because King's a lecherous creep. Lillian then talks to X-Pac. Tori then, Tori's turn on Kane was absolutely seen coming from a mile away.
It didn't happen here. We had Kane and X-Pac in a match where at least there was a story. They used to be tag partners. X-Pac got pissed. They reformed DX. He did what he did. Road Dogg ran in. Triple H ran in and clocked Kane with the title when he tried to tombstone Kane, not X-Pac. That would have been weird. And there you are. So we get a DQ. Tori runs down and X-Pac does his spinning back kick and knocks Tori out. And then Kane's pissed. Or gassy. Hard to tell with Kane. I also miss when Kane didn't talk and when Kane actually kept, his wits about him. Because apparently he doesn't have any wits now. So anyway, near's Undertaker, but at least Undertaker drew money. So Cole was with Rock and Triple H, and Triple H shows up and they brawl. And then we go to Big Show taking out his tag team partners earlier, taking out Kai and Tai and the Blue Meanie. Hands up if you remember the Blue Meanie was on WWF television this late in 1999, because I forgot. Nothing against Blue Meanie, I just forgot he was still there. So, yeah, Show took on the Big Boss Man, Mideon, Albert, and Viscera, and took out the last three within 50 seconds, and then the Big Boss Man left. This is right after Big Boss Man had drugged Big Show's dad's casket out of the goddamn arena. Or not the arena, but out of the, out of the funeral procession. It was funny. I mean, it wasn't, but it also was because it was so comedic. I'm shocked the Big Show didn't break his neck doing that tumble off of there. Man, looking at the week-to-week stuff, they made Boss Man just a dick. And then, right after this, he lost to Big Show at Armageddon 99, which I might retro-review. I don't know if I'm going to or not. I got a lot of shit in December. And then after that, they pretty much just gave up. I mean, yes, Boss Man was older. Boss Man was more broken down. But he was doing some of his best character work in the, summer and fall of 99. So, anyway... Big Show took everybody out. And that's it. It was impressive they slammed Viscera with ease. So, then we have Kevin Kelly with Austin. Boy, Kevin Kelly dumped himself out of position, didn't he? Just couldn't stay away from the crackpot stuff. Anyway, here's Triple H. They battle, and then Austin gets out to a clearly pre-taped thing where he got hit by a car. They couldn't have done more of a hard cut here if they tried. But then the crowd is pissed because JR goes back to check on him. Vince is checking on him. Vince goes to the hospital with him. Shane's upset. Triple H says, I'm not getting blamed for this. They ripped off the pay-per-view customers. So then, speaking of ripping off the pay-per-view customers, they certainly did with this next match. It was China defending the Intercontinental title against Chris Jericho. Oh, dear. Look. I've made my opinion clear on how I feel about China as a worker. She had a striking look and was not the worst in the world. She took bumps. I'm sorry. It was just never going to work. It is a big deal that she became the first woman to win the Intercontinental Championship. Multiple times, I believe. At least a couple times. And cool. Great. Jericho, he got more chance here than China did. Now, yes, Detroit is a bit of a defiant crowd. You go back with the history of Detroit wrestling to the Chic. And you're going to get some loud crowds, and this was a big goddamn, big-time production. I'm sorry, but just China was not good. Jericho kisses Miss Kitty, who apparently was not very nice. I mean, she was married to Lawler, and I'm not saying Lawler's a saint, but apparently Stacy wasn't very nice either. China, I mean, I'm sorry, but just, there were so many moves in this. It was so many moves in this that just didn't work. It was like a 13-minute match, and it really had maybe 7 minutes of action. So, a title to the headshot for 2, and the crowd boos. Triple H, China hits a pedigree, 1-2 kick out to cheers. China fights out of the walls of Jericho, gets to the ropes, the crowd boos. And if Miss Kitty distracts, we get a super pedigree where Jericho basically had to throw himself to the ground, which, yes, China would have shattered her goddamn knees because it was almost like trying to do a Pepsi plunge. But good God. Anyway, 1, 2, 3. So China retains. It was something for Jericho to do, and Jericho would win the Intercontinental title, but then Jericho and China would do this double pin thing, and then Jericho would eventually become the Intercontinental Champion in a triple threat, I believe, at the Rumble, and then would lose it to Kurt Angle, and then would win the European title at WrestleMania, and then, Chris Benoit would win the Intercontinental title. It's the second most violent triple threat that Chris Benoit was involved in his career. And Triple H is still pleading innocence. The return to innocence, oh hi, oh hi, pedigree high. Oh hi, spitting water up into the sky, There is nobody that'll get that reference if they're watching this late. The Hardcore Hollies, or Holly and Crash Holly. Hardcore and Crash Holly, that's what I'm trying to say, against Too Cool. Grandmaster Sexay, I swear every time Brian Christopher did the weird laugh skip thing, it's like he was getting his balls strangled. Like somebody was just, doing that or whatever. So, Sky Tuati was his tag partner. They took on Edge and Christian and the Hardys, and, I'll give them this much credit. 1, second longest match of the night. No, really. And 2, at least they picked the pace up at points. Brian Christopher was not awful in the ring, but I never thought that he really got it. He was fine for the territories. He might have been fine in WCW. I remember him on a WWA pay-per-view against Jeff Jarrett, and that was bullshit. So, the commentary is still focused on Austin. Edge, with a miscommunication, got rolled up. Matt Hardy got eliminated as well. Scotty got pinned by a 450 from Jeff Hardy. Down to Christian and Hardcore, and then a reverse victory roll 1, 2, 3. I mean, I've seen worse. It was the best elimination match of these, but it still wasn't great. And Shane has an update. It'll be a 3-way match, and then the New Age Outlaws, featuring Idiot Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, who's still wrestling to this day, against Mankind and noted moron Al Snow for the tag titles. Al Snow, basing like the best match is the one that drew the most money, so no wonder Al Snow never drew a dime. Foley, he got big pops, but man, he was done by this point. It's no wonder after No Way Out 2000, he'd be fully retired until he came back at WrestleMania 2000. Bless him. Bless Foley. Gave his body to this business. They plugged Foley's book. The controversy around Al Snow's action figure with the disembodied head and all that. And yeah, this was painful. Mainly because they're requiring me to watch an Al Snow match for 13 minutes on pay-per-view. And it was a low blow. We get a headshot, literally, Al Snow's head, 1, 2. And then a stuffed pile driver, 1, 2, 3. New Age Outlaws retain the tag titles. And then more Austin update stuff. And then Triple H is in the ring, Rock's in the ring. Well, Rock came out first, then Triple H. And then the third man is The Big Show. And Rock goes, huh? And the crowd goes, The Rock popped for... or the crowd rather popped for The Rock quite a bit. It's Rock, Triple H, Big Show, Triple Threat, WWF Championship match. They brawl to the entranceway, and I gotta be honest, it might have been the best match of the goddamn show, but it still wasn't great. Like, this pay-per-view was kind of excruciating to sit through. I just decided to dissect, throw some jokes, and throw some analysis about previous pay-per-views and just have some fun. Because even if you take this in a vacuum, you're still going to get the storyline updates, even if you remember the TV from this time. It's still not a great pay-per-view. So, we get a ref bump. There was a nice double suplex where Big Show went through the Spanish announcer's table, because it's always that. And Shane comes in as the ref. 1, 2, kick out, and then Show stops him from making, another pin. Triple H on pedigree. Shane, Show and Rock battle. DX runs in, for what they're worth at this point. And then Vince runs down. He misses Triple H with the title. And then Triple H's like, huh? Boom. Because Vince is clueless. And then Show hits a chokeslam. 1, 2, 3 as Vince makes the... well, Vince actually just did the double bird thing. It just, whatever. Because Vince was supposed to be the special guest referee for this, but then went to the hospital with Austin. It's a mess. This show is a mess. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.